Alright, I'm back, and after what I approximate is like a month and a half of a hiatus, well, I can't promise weekly reviews like I used to, at least not yet, but hey, I'm back. And this time with something kind of old, but also new. Yes, this is the Final Audio ZE3000, supposedly the true Oz version of the E3000 from Final as well, so famed for its mellow and relaxed sound. Well, not gonna stall for much longer, let's get into this review of the Final Audio ZE3000. Box for the ZE3000 is a fairly mainstream design. It's got a picture of the product in the front, some patented features such as Qualcomm aptX, and the safety certifications and such, as well as some general specifications in the back. Now, if you watch my review on the AG Cotsubu, more budget True Oz offering under the sub-brand of Final, you'll know that this is a pretty similar affair to that. Opening up the magnetic flap here, you are presented with the AG Cotsubu as well as the charging case just resting in a stiff foam insert. Now below that is the accessories box, which now opening up said box, you're getting two things. One of them is the basically standard USB Type-C cable. I mean, what else to say rather than it works, and that's kind of it. And then you have the Final Type E ear tips for true wireless earphones. This time it comes in a matte black hue compared to the transparent silicone of the AG Cotsubu version. But it's otherwise pretty much the same. But this time though, it comes in a whole 5 sizes for your wearing pleasure. There is also going to be an instruction manual for this ZE3000, but it is not included in my box because, well, I bought this unit used, judging from the bit of dirtiness here and all that. Yeah, no instruction manuals in here. Now for wired IM, I think it's pretty straightforward, so it's probably fine, but for a true Oz earphone with possibly custom control schemes and like feature sets, the lack of an instruction manual can be quite the hassle for new users. Thankfully, you can find an online version in Final's website. I'll leave the link to it in the description. And here is the charging case for the ZE3000. It looks more like a soap bar than a pebble. However, it's still decently portable with its light weight. Now the case is plastic. It's somewhat hollow feeling and has what Final advertises as a Shibo coating, which is reminiscent of the parts of a high-end camera. To be honest, it feels pretty rough and looks like the bubbling paint on some Moonrock IMs. Now below the case is going to be your standard USB Type-C port. The case takes about 2 hours to charge and 1.5 to charge the ZE3000 earbuds inside from flat to full. There's no wireless charging on the case, but you do get an LED on the front end, as you can see, which it displays red, yellow, and green for case battery levels, and blue, indicating the bud's battery as well as some pairing processes. I thought that the brown AG Cotsubu case, it already looks pretty bad, but Final just continues to amaze me with how visually unappealing they can make their true Oz earphones look. The ZE3000's sister model, the ZE2000, is similar to this shape, but it has a much more sensible matte plastic material that, in my opinion, looks a lot better than this weird Shibo coating. And here are the Final ZE3000s themselves. They have a very angular design with a shape that is, when you look at it like this, it's quite reminiscent of the modern Final IM lineups. The frankly ugly looking Shibo coating, as you can see, it makes yet another debut on this one, with the Final logo in the front as well as LR indicators along with the text Final ZE3000 on the side that faces your ear. Now the nozzle, as you can see, is short, but it is average length for a true wireless earbud, and it can work with a decent amount of ear tips. And yes, those white flakes that you see on this nozzle here, yeah, that was here since I bought it, because this is a second-hand item after all. So yeah, that's some genuine Japanese guys or girls earwax in there. Ugh. Now, despite sporting this very eccentric shape, the ZE3000 is decently comfortable, being quite light, though not exactly melting into your ears in terms of size. It also juts out quite a bit, so it's not that viable for sleep use rather than the AG Cotsubu. The ZE3000, it doesn't exhibit the Cotsubu's vacuum-like fit, which makes it have a bit worse isolation, whilst the Cotsubu can at times even match active noise cancelling true wireless earbuds. But this does help the ZE3000 to be more comfortable for long-term use. So on this side, in these little slits here, you'll see the LED indicators for the ZE3000. It also displays red, yellow, and green for battery levels, and no, they will not periodically flash when in use, so no worries there. There's actually only 1/3 of the ZE3000 surface that is actually touch sensitive, which is this top part here. This part, not touch sensitive. Despite that it only has a small touch surface, these sides are actually quite sensitive and sometimes even overly sensitive, but generally it's more responsive and accurate than the ones on the AG Costubu. Now, Final advertises 7 hours of battery life on the ZE3000, but I find that a little ambitious because I tend to get closer to maybe 5 hours and about 3-4 something more charges out of the case. It could be better, but it also could be worse, I guess. So what do you get for features on the Final ZE3000? Not a lot. It's just a music-only true set, but you do get IPX for water resistance, which will do fine for small rings and probably a gym session, as long as you don't rock your head around too much. The control scheme on them makes a little bit more sense than the Cotsubu's. They rely less on whether or not music is playing to determine the functions, and they switch around the orientation of volume controls. They also have a triple tap for the assistant rather than a double tap. I still would like an app so that I could customize and change the controls, but a man can dream. The mic quality of the Final Audio ZE3000 is not that great. My voice sounds kind of twangy, a little muted, and kind of hollow. It's gonna be okay for a basic call and maybe some limited video conferencing, but this is not that reliable. Oh yeah, and the voice prompts on the ZE3000, they are the stock ones from like Qualcomm equipped true wireless stuffs, but a little bit more bit crushed than the AG Cotsubu's one. Now for codec support, you'll be getting SBC, AAC, and aptX adaptive, so your standard set of codecs is, especially for a premium set, aptX adaptive, cool. But no game mode, as the delay, it sits roughly around the 4 millisecond level. And of course, I would like to take this time to remind you to not play games with true wireless earphones. So, about to listen with prerequisites. For ear tips, I'll be using these medium-sized Final Type E for ear tips. Very good, comfortable ear tips that seal the ear well, and a must-have for your true wireless earphones. Not even just the Final, just for your true wireless stuff in general. And as for the firmware, well, since there's no app for these, what you get in the box is basically what you'll get for the rest of the life of the ZE3000. And with all that out of the way, let's get to the sound of the ZE3000. So let's get to the sound. As advertised, the ZE3000, it's basically the true wireless version of the E3000, with more extension in both ends of the frequency spectrum. More accurately, I would say the ZE3000 is the wireless version of the E5000 in tuning, but the E3000 in technicalities. Starting with the bass. So the low end of the ZE3000 is given a decent amount of warmth, with a semi-soft texture and extended, though somewhat dry decay. Much like its wired counterpart, the ZE3000 doesn't have much in terms of slam factor, and its bass isn't of the highest quality and detailing either. However, it does quite well to spread and make itself be heard in your music without resorting to being overly aggressive. To be sure, at higher volumes it is somewhat muted, or at least being a little too constrained. Possibly some sort of DSP function in the chip doing its work, but it is otherwise an enveloping bass that mirrors well with the E3000, just with a bit more presence. Now the mid-range of the ZE3000 retains some of the sweetness and warmth of the E3000, but with extra technicalities added. You hear a good amount of separation and detail retrieval. No longer are mids just mellow, but still, they never go overboard and they maintain a non-fatiguing sound. This time being a little less dark than the wired E3000. Now I hear some raspiness and slight distortion at times, but it rarely occurs, and overall it fulfills Final's vision quite well. The note texture is a little harder, so no longer in the sweet spot that made me fall in love with the E3000. But whilst it's only average in comparison to the wired IEM market, in the true wireless market, indeed this is a great implementation of a relaxed and lush mid-range while still being energetic when the music requires it to be. Going to the highs of the ZE3000 are a little sizzly and somewhat artificially boosted, which is probably the weak point of this true wireless set, which makes it, in my opinion, what betrays its objective of being the true wireless version of the E3000. The high range is here given some extra presence to emulate some feeling of clarity, and it does alright, but all that ended up doing is ruining balance, sounding not exactly non-fatiguing, whilst also not being that detailed either. Don't get me wrong, it's not horrible, but it's just not exactly what I wanted, and not exactly something I think an E3000 fan would want. Going to the soundstage, well, the ZE3000's soundstage is a good amount of wide, better than the average true wireless set, though matched and perhaps surpassed by a good chunk of the better wired IEMs, and it's maybe a little worse than the wired E3000. You get a good amount of soundstage width and height, and the imaging is not bad as well. Technicalities is quite decent, with good separation of different musical elements, and the resolution offered is adequate. Still not good for detail heads, but about as detailed as most Final products will get. I actually kind of wish that Final made the ZE3000 just a little less adept at this aspect to try to more closely match the wired E3000, but nonetheless, it's good. So I already drew a lot of parallels to the wired E3000, but let's see where it's the same and where it diverges. Of course, the ZE3000 is a true wireless offering, so you trade the thin wire with the charging case, and the metal build is replaced with a plastic one that has water resistance. The accessories also reflect the different nature of these products. The E3000 including plastic ear hooks and the standard Final Type E tips, whilst the ZE3000 includes the charging cable and a true wireless optimized version of the Final Type E's. Now as for the sound, like I said, the ZE3000 is an E3000 with more extension on both ends of the spectrum. But E3000 has a more rounded off treble range, its bass texture softer, and is overall the more well-tuned offering for me. As Final was able to make the E3000 the best microdriver IEM, as well as the most relaxed and mellow sounding IEM in my eyes, or my ears I guess. The ZE3000 sacrifices some of these aspects in return for slightly better separation and detail retrieval. its bass hits a little harder, its treble a little more sparkly, however losing that balance that I said before, which is why to me, the ZE3000 is a wireless E5000 rather than an E3000. Overall, I prefer the wired E3000, but nonetheless, the convenience of the ZE3000 is quite tempting for sure. And it's not like being closer sounding to the E5000 is a bad thing. Probably goes down to my personal taste more than anything. Between the ZE3000 and the ZE2000, the 2000 is released a bit later than the ZE3000, and I'm making this comparison through listening impressions that I had whilst in the store considering between the two models, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think it's worth comparing. Now, I can only imagine both products have similar specs, boxes, and accessories, but on my hands, at least in the store, the ZE2000 was definitely the better looking true wire set, with a classy, even if quite safe matte plastic coating. Now for the sound, the ZE2000 again does as advertised, being a wireless E2000, though leaning closer to the E4000 in tuning and technical ability. Compared to the ZE3000, the ZE2000 is brighter sounding with much more mid-range emphasis, especially upper mid-range, that can render vocals with more stage presence. However, it exhibits the fault that I saw with the wired E2000 in that it can get quite grainy, raspy, and distorted in a way that I can only describe as pneumonia mid-range. However, I do know that as much as there is a fan base for the E3000, me included, there are also a dedicated bunch who prefer the E2000's tuning. So if you're looking for that, but in true wireless form, yeah, the ZE2000 is for you. Heck, going from the E2000 to the ZE2000 is a clearer upgrade than the E3000 to the ZE3000, because it's a straight up simply having better technicalities and a similar, even improved tuning with somewhat less artifacting and graininess, so pretty much a straightforward upgrade. Now, between the AG Cotsubu and the ZE3000, I actually kind of prefer the aesthetics on the Cotsubu, being the more compact and comfortable true wireless set. And whilst its brown color is pretty ugly, you have 6 more colors to choose from, and it doesn't have the diseased animal skin look of the ZE3000's Shibo coating. I don't like it. The accessories are quite similar. You get a charging cable and the final E for true wireless set, though you do get fewer tip sizes on the Cotsubu, and it's a transparent silicone stock, which is ever so slightly softer than the ones on the ZE3000. Sound-wise, the AG Cotsubu has a similar amount of bass to the ZE3000, but it tends to deliberately bleed into the lower mids more, as well as having a more subdued mid-range, bordering on a level of sounding dark. The Cotsubu also intentionally blurs or omits some micro details for the sake of a relaxed sound, which to be honest isn't much of a detraction, though conversely the ZE3000 does try to keep those details and present it with more finesse. I also think on technicalities front, the ZE3000 is better for the most part, especially in the soundstage, where the Cotsubu can sometimes sound a bit narrow. Different strokes for different folks though, I'd say. And for the gap in price you need to pay between the Cotsubu and the ZE3000, I don't think it's really a straightforward upgrade, merely different flavors. The Cotsubu being a product tailoring more to the general consumers, and the ZE3000 is more for the fans and those more aligned in the audiophile circle. Okay, yeah. After all that analysis and all the comparisons, what can you take away from this video? First, the ZE3000 is the true wireless version of the E3000, and it's also not. I know, quite anticlimactic, but there's no black and white answer to this, to be honest. Ask yourself, if you prioritize the perfect balance in warmth and mellowness on the E3000, Or do you just want something kind of similar to that, maybe just in general the final house sound with a bit more oomph and clarity, as well as the convenience of a true wireless headset, which the ZE3000 is catering for? Your preference and personal taste will be the determining factor of this purchase. And secondly, what if we look at the ZE3000 divorced from its legacy and the expectation of it being a spiritual successor to the E3000? To that end, I think it is still a worthwhile product, well-tuned offering in the world of the true wireless earphones where tuning can be hit or miss from most of the products. Though being in the true wireless world also means that the ZE3000 is shacked up with ever-competitive offerings in a race to the bottom in terms of price. And with the AG Cotsubu costing less with more mainstream appeal, and Samsung's Galaxy Buds lineup always getting steep discounts, having more features as well, the ZE3000 will be a hard pill to swallow unless you're the niche that it intends to target. And we've reached the end of yet another review. As always, I'll leave the links to the music that I use in the description, as well as links to my blog and my Patreon, where you can support me so that I can actually bring in more of these stuff to review. Thank you to all of my patrons for making this happen. As even though I am a little bit behind on updating the commensurate rewards for the Patreon tiers, I will get to updating them now that I'm a little bit more settled in Japan. Please be patient with me. Thank you. And as always, like the video if you like it. Comment if you have any suggestions, any questions, any past experiences you want to share. Please, by all means, go to the comment section and talk yourselves out. And of course, subscribe to the channel so that the videos actually get delivered into your feed. Otherwise though, yeah, I thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next video. This is Lou Marion, signing off.